one thing you should know about me. I'm dumb. I no longer have a gallbladder. Lost it in a trip to Disney World after Minnie gave me something to drink so I would loosen up and we could have some fun. After that event, my doctor told me in no uncertain terms, "No more fried food for you!" But like I said, I'm dumb. So, last night I ate about 3 pounds, roughly 1.5 kilograms of deep fried food. Cheese balls, chicken nuggets, meat croquettes, the whole shebang. Children, it was glorious. Until it wasn't. I spent the next 16 hours in agony as my body attempted to process that ungodly amount of grease. I was torn between waiting for everything to be expelled rocket style through my southern exit or poking my throat with 2 fingers and recreating the witches of Eastwick in my bathroom. I chose the first option because puking is for pussies. So I just convulsed in bed until I felt better. During that time, I turned to the one thing that always numbs my pain. Now, isn't YouTube beautiful? You don't have to search very hard to find videos of completely naked people doing yoga or time lapses of human bodies decaying, but say that one word with age, demonetized! You made the algorithm cry! How dare you! So yeah, I used the entire intro of this video to talk about literally nothing in a desperate attempt to avoid the algorithm tossing me into the abyss for mentioning naughty words in the first 30 seconds. Now you know why I didn't get to the point right away. Anyway, there I was, in pain, making noises in bed, thinking about voluptuous drawn women while I suffered. Thing is, I genuinely respect and admire the artists who dedicate themselves to adult art. Over the years, I made a habit of checking for new adult artwork of my favorite anime, cartoon, and video game characters. No, I'm not ashamed of admitting it. Call me a gooner if you want, but let's be honest. If you've ever been online, there is a 100% chance you've spent at least one whole night on shady websites looking for naughty images of your favorite characters. The more innocent ones went for Marvel or Dragon Ball Z. The more adventurous types, Disney princesses. And then there's the Sonic fandom. We do not speak of the Sonic fandom. In my view, it's a rite of passage. Humans are sexual creatures. We still run on 50,000-year-old firmware from the days when reproducing was our #1 goal. Hey, 99% of the cave children would be eaten by saber-toothed tigers, by their own parents, or used as fuel so the tribe fire wouldn't die. People had to reproduce like rabbits. Today, most of us don't need to have 11 kids in the hope to survive. But the instinct to boinka, boinka, boinka everything around us is still very much there. So, is it really surprising there's such a huge demand for adult content? Now, people kind are so perpetually obsessed with doing the horizontal dirty dance that every single invention in human history was made so people could get laid or at least goon in peace. Here's an example. Back in the good old days, before Netflix, before even Blockbuster, there was a video format war. VHS versus Betamax. For the millennials and zoomers, those were magnetic tape formats that, through what can only be described as witchcraft, allowed people to record and watch movies at home. Betamax had better quality, VHS had longer recording times and cheaper production. Video files from the late 1970s and early 1980s battled on the streets over which format was better. Millions died in the conflict. It was a glorious time to be alive. But you know what really tipped the scales on that war? The adult film industry chose VHS. And just like that, thousands of gooners wearing bell-bottom pants rushed to buy VHS players so they could watch Debbie Does Dallas in the privacy of their homes. By the way, did you know Debbie Does Dallas is public domain today? Thanks to that, it can be watched free of charge on Wikipedia. But don't tell anyone that, or some Karen will have it removed. Shh, shh, we gotta be discreet. So, just like VHS before it, the internet became the place to go if you wanted to watch the intrepid adventures of Randy West and then choke the chicken, beat the bishop, pound the flounder, shake hands with the president, do the five-knuckle shuffle, burp the worm, and so many euphemisms that should have left us at the end of 5th grade but never did. It took some time, however, for artists to realize they could use the World Wide Web. Nobody but boomers use this term anymore. Eggheads. To post their works. There were some websites here and there, but it was only with the advent of social media that independent adult artists finally had a haven to expose their art and gather a following. And that's when they started to thrive. If, like me, you ever dared to touch X, formerly known as Twitter, first of all, go wash your hands. Second, you've probably come across accounts from adult artists offering commissions or showcasing their work. You don't even have to look for them. Unless you carefully curate your feed, you will eventually be bombarded by all sorts of evil that site has. And you also may be blessed with hentai, drawn by someone with godlike talent. Some of my favorite adult artists include Aromasensei, Sciamano, aka Mirko Cabia, Luigi Max, Kitu, Paloma Piquet, Incase, who somehow made me appreciate Hobbit women, Dandonfuga, Extermination, Erodibot, and so many more! But one in particular became one of my best friends, Sano-BR, who specialized in Dragon Ball Z vixens. We talked about everything. He frequently showed me his new works, and we discussed favorite artists. The guy had encyclopedic knowledge of every adult and mainstream Japanese illustrator from the past 50 years, and through him, I learned a very important lesson. Adult artists are some of the most hardworking people on the planet. Okay, here's a typical conversation Sano and I would have. I'd find a drawing of, let's say, Tsunade from Naruto, then show it to Sano and say, "Isn't this piece amazing?" Then he would spend the next 20 minutes dissecting the art, its proportions, the posture, how every human bone would snap if a person attempted to replicate her pose in real life, how her fat muscle proportion was abhorrent, how her booba was not obeying the laws of physics, and how her arm wasn't properly connected to the shoulder.
Every party needs a pooper, that's why they invited you. Party pooper, party pooper.
Sure, it could kill the vibe, but he was a pro. He couldn't see adult art like a fan anymore, only as a fellow craftsman. The same way a fat single woman in her 40s knows everything about astrology and cannot see zodiac signs for what they are, which is nothing, Sano saw every brushstroke and every anatomical detail on a fellow artist's work. That taught me, drawing hentai isn't about just slapping some boobs on paper, it requires mastery of anatomy and ambience. Let's start with anatomy. If erotic art doesn't respect human proportions, it will repulse instead of entice. As humans, we know what the human body should look like and how it should behave. Why photorealistic graphics in modern video games or CGI in movies sometimes causes us to feel weird? Because of the uncanny valley effect. That which is supposed to look like a human but doesn't causes revulsion most of the time, even if you don't know why. As Mr. Piquet would say,
"You might not have even noticed, but your brain did."
To portray the human body properly, hentai artists study how muscles behave, how skin presses against fabric, how fat shifts with motion. Even when their work is stylized, and we already talked about the benefits of stylized art in another video, which I will link in the description, the anatomy needs to be as flawless as possible. Many erotic artists become gym rats just to better understand how the human form works, and also to avoid their own bodies breaking down from sitting at a desk 12 hours a day. This is real dedication, more than a lot of so-called legit careers. Now, ambience, the ability to tell an entire story with a single image. For example, Dandonfuga's piece of Marceline from Adventure Time. Marceline's in her room, sweater half off, looking at the viewer with a teasing expression. You can almost feel the backstory. You, the viewer, visited her. The two of you started hanging out, chilling. Conversation eventually got a bit spicier and flirty. She started teasing you, and in a very spontaneous moment, she stood in front of you and took her sweater off, with an inviting look on her face, eyes that say, "So, what are you gonna do about it?" Even if your imagination fills in the gaps differently, the image invites a story. It's not about raw exposure, it's about suggestion, just like classic pinups. Adult artists are masters of two things: human anatomy and emotional storytelling. They spend months, even years, perfecting technique, shading, workflow speed, and mastering anatomy, all for a form of art that will never be recognized as mainstream. You can admire the quality of Aromasensei or Sciamano's work and then realize they will never be in an art exhibition. Not only that, it's something you can't openly admire or talk about without being judged by most people. You can't use their work as cell phone wallpaper or casually show it to a coworker without inviting weird looks. Why? Because they draw boobs, and people are very scared of being labeled as deviants if they are open about enjoying this kind of artwork. Artwork, not pictures. I'll come back to that in a bit. As I probably made it very obvious by now, I don't care. I admire hentai art. Adult artists chose integrity, passion. They draw because they love the human form and want to express it in all its detail. They know they'll be ignored by critics and despised by the mainstream, and still choose to do it. I have a lot of respect for anyone that so openly flips the bird to society and says, "I'll do my thing, screw you if you don't like it." Yeah, there is a lot of money in doing that, but you know what? Most people wouldn't take a job that demands an absurd level of dedication and forces you to keep your identity hidden over fear of being ostracized, no matter how good the paycheck was. Also this, a lot of people who hate on erotic art use the argument that it objectifies women, yet they see no problem with OnlyFans models, and sometimes even call their work empowering, while artists like Sano have to stay anonymous to not have their lives dragged through mud. In fact, there are a lot of women in this field, like the aforementioned Aromasensei, Piquet, and Paloma Piquet. A large part of society would condemn them for drawing sexually explicit images, but if they decided to become OnlyFans models and did the exact same things they draw in front of a camera, the same people wouldn't blink an eye. They might even applaud them for their empowering actions. So, why are erotic drawings sometimes more frowned upon than the work of people like Lily Phillips, who does more and more extreme things in order to garner attention? Food for thought. So, what do you guys think? Do you agree? Disagree? Think I'm a terminal gooner who desperately needs Jesus? Leave a comment. I read every single one of them. Also, I hate to ask, but if you can, please leave a like and subscribe. YouTube changed the algorithm again. Views don't count as engagement unless people actively engage. It's stupid, yes, but it's YouTube. If you take a nanosecond of your day to click the thumbs up or thumbs down, I'll pray that your first child is a masculine child. So, thank you for watching this to the end. It truly means the world to me. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you didn't, thank you for giving me a chance. Until next time, take care of yourselves and everyone you love. Cheers!